I'm here to really present some extraordinary things that have been revealed to me and that I've been carrying for a very long time. I've been a student of this for 35 years, and I really come from the spiritual aspect. My greater community spirituality of the universe is really where my heart is, but the universe is a place of great hazard and opportunity, um, where all levels of consciousness exist, and certainly is beyond our notions of what logic is and what reality is to a certain degree. So I bring with it a real journey, and I hope I can make a contribution with you here today. There's confusion of levels here. And confusion of levels is a very difficult thing when you're aware of different levels, which many self-aware people are, that life has different levels. There's the psychic, there's the spiritual, there's the physical, there's the metaphysical. These are all different levels, and some of them actually operate on different rules and principles. For instance, I do not confuse the physical with the spiritual very often. The spiritual can infuse itself on the physical and does, but they're operating on completely different platforms. One is temporary, the other is permanent. One is operating outside of time, the other is completely bound within time. And so I don't confuse these two levels because it makes both of them less accurate to do so. So I look at the intervention as a purely physical, historical, biological event first. Now, what it means at other levels, I do consider that. But I don't confuse the levels, because when you do that, you get a blur. Life becomes a blur. And now you're not being really practical, but you're also not being really incisive. So to stay out of that blur zone for me requires that I have this division of levels. And I think we need to focus on this as a species-to-species competition. They've been here for 75 years. They're not revealing their behavior, their activities, or their intent. They're taking people against their will, subjecting them to cruel and illegal processes, damaging them. I've been around many, many abductees through my work. Many of them come to work with me through the spiritual work. I'm not a therapist, so I don't regress them, but I see the damage being done here. They're really being used as resources. And of course, they try to think of it as a higher spiritual thing. It's redemptive. It's giving me new consciousness and all these things. But the fact of the matter is, most of these people are very damaged. And they're also beset by living in a culture that doesn't recognize what they've been through or even accept it. So this confusion of levels thing, I think, is part of what muddies up the stream and approaching what really is an act of nature as much as anything, and is highly consequential, and should not be confused with our hopeful and wishful thinking in any way. Okay, and I want to make one point that I know some people might disagree with, but has been an eye-opener for me. And the Allies briefings actually don't speak about this directly, but it is certainly inferred in what they're communicating. But it was on my own realization that the intervention is not here for us. It's here for the world. We're just part of the resource of the world. Now, they can't live here because of atmospheric and biological hazard. So they need us to work for them. And in order for that to be possible, they need to begin a hybridization program that's now many generations old, to create for the future a new leadership for humanity that's bound to them, but looks like us and can function here. Hybrids, not just people who have had contact, but people who actually been re-engineered intellectually and emotionally through a process of hybridization. So it's very clever. It's not what we would think, right? We think of Star Wars. That's our template. That's our template for life in the universe, right there. So I should continue. I'll complete some thoughts here that I think are important and have given me an opportunity to both really acknowledge our spiritual nature. And many of the people here, perhaps all of you, I would consider to be greater community people, or people who were born with a history in the universe, or a deep feeling or sense of it, or sense of destiny or purpose in your life that is connected to it in some way, however that may be. I certainly feel that way about myself. So, but I think, we're the native peoples of the New World. If we look at the history of what happened to native peoples of visitation from technically advanced other human nations, we know the outcome of that. And while this may be different, we should never forget that that is a template and should probably be our starting point, because history repeats itself. And, in my view, the first visitors en masse, in a sense of being highly impactful, are going to be resource explorers, economic collectives, the outreach of greater nations that would not interfere with us directly for reasons I can discuss later, but are here to do the exploratory kind of dirty work for them. And I think this is really important for us to think about, because the only way that humanity is going to grow up and stop being adolescent and being fighting with each other constantly is to be challenged in this way. Otherwise, we're all trying to seek fulfillment from contact, which is ridiculous. And we're being challenged. And the challenge is what's going to uplift humanity, not fulfillment and belief and ideology. And we're star people now, and we're all going to celebrate, the star people of the universe and things like this. I'm telling you, people, if we don't get our act together, we're going to be mowed under. Not immediately, because they're playing the long game. We don't play the long game. They're playing the long game. They know from an atmospheric signature that we are going to change our climate, and that will probably reduce the human population by a phenomenal degree and create a cascading set of events. That, plus the overuse of resources in this world and all the other environmental hazards and degradation that we have created on our own, neglectfully or willfully. So we're creating the condition that's going to make their ascendancy possible through all these things. So listen, what has nature and history taught us about native people's contact with life from beyond its own shores? So let us always remember that as a lesson of life, not just a unique part of our history. It could be a part of the history of life in the universe. We are living on a planet highly valued by others, and we're slowly destroying it. Also, think about this. We've been broadcasting out in the universe all of our degradation, our wars, the changes we're making to our world, our human suffering, everything for the discrete observer to watch and discern. So that after 100 years, well, they probably know more about our psychology than we do. They understand what we do and why we do it. We understand our flaws, our weaknesses, our tendencies. And so they can capitalize all these things to serve a hidden agenda, hidden from us. So, you're not a visitor if you've been here for 75 years, undisclosed, unrevealing. That's not a visitor, people. That's an intruder. And they're not only just visiting, they are permanently here. They're planting themselves with an agenda. And so this is a come to Jesus time. I don't mean that literally, but this is a time to get really real about being challenged as humanity, as all being challenged equally by the same exterior forces who are here to do what they think is probably the appropriate thing to do. If the human beings can't manage the planet, well, we'll have to manage it, and they can work for us until we don't need them anymore. So, which is kind of, I'm extrapolating this, but it kind of represents their behavior, the thinking behind their behaviors. We don't matter except that we're useful to them, and maybe not even permanently. So we have to get off our high spiritual horse. We have to get off our sense of we're so important in the universe that anyone would come here to help us and enable us and teach us to live in peace, because we're such an important race that, we have to be helped to become who we really are. We are not important in the universe. I think we're important to God. I think we're important to the angelic presence. It values us because we still have freedom and spirituality alive in our own world, where it's died out in probably most big technological societies, or we never existed to begin with. So here we are, the native peoples of the world walking around in circles about who's in our world. And when you begin to put together the clues of their behavior or lack of behavior, their lack of communication, you are seeing they're planting the seeds for conquest. It's interesting when you talk to people in the Middle East, and my son and I have traveled in the Middle East quite a bit. You talk to people who have been colonized in colonized countries. When you ask them about something like this, you'll hear people say something like, "Oh, we're here to take over," because that's what happens when you have more powerful technological societies now intervening in less technological societies from our own history. So in their mindset, that's just would be the most logical thing to happen. For us, it's everything but that. It's everything. It has to be about us. It has to be about our fulfillment. It has to be about our evolution. But I'm telling you, people, they're here for the world. We're only useful to them. We don't matter beyond that. If you can put your arms around that, and for some people, that's like their hair on fire, right? Just they go around with their hair on fire. And I know this is a huge challenge to how we want to see this and how we thought we could see it or should see it. But I think it empowers us as the native peoples of the world, because though they may rule the skies this moment, they don't rule the ground. And they can't win us over by force because it's not allowed in this part of our universe. Something nobody on Earth knows about, but which the Allies of Humanity briefings reveals to us. That conquest is not allowed in this arena of life in the universe, because we live in the midst of huge trading networks that have, after millennia of conflict and degradation and failure, have put together these vast networks to create stability and survivability for large numbers of planets. And we just happen to be the independent planet in amongst all of these. But those races who want to see our world under their sphere of influence cannot take us by conquest. They have to win us over by guile and deception. They have to at least make us look like we're not resisting them. See what I mean? That's the rules of intervention in our part of the universe. And I know you can say I don't believe that. Sure, you don't have to believe that. But it is part of the Allies' briefings. And what it does is it makes sense out of the behavior of the intervention today, which is non-military, which is not using force, which is employing its influence of persuasion, discouragement, guile, everything, to hopeful, believing human beings who want to be rescued because we're in such ever increasing dilemmas on Earth. So I want to present this very prosaic position, even though I'm a very spiritual person, and I each teach about greater community spirituality, which is not what I'm talking about here today. I'm talking about greater community survivability, which you have to survive the greater community before you can begin to evolve within it spiritually. And our challenge is surviving the greater community as we stand today. This is based upon my angelic work over many decades, and of course the Allies Humanity briefings, which only occurred on 4 separate occasions with no contact in between. So I'm not hanging out with these folks. And these were given to me as a gift to humanity, not to replace our intelligence, but to amplify it and to fill in the spaces and gaps that do exist, because we're all earthbound and we do not know what life is like beyond our border, however much we may hope and believe and speculate about it. So who's here? These are basically resource explorers. The collectives represent multiple races, hierarchically organized to serve in different functions and capacities, which is why you see different archetypes in extraterrestrials as people report from direct encounters and observations and elsewhere. So they're here to map out the Earth for those who sent them here to do so. And they view us, they understand our basic mentality, but who we are spiritually may be a mystery to them. They seem to have no spiritual dimension at all. The people who report their conversations and interactions with them, they seem cold, they seem remote. They seem unimpressed by anything we say or do. This is the abductee contact from the actual on the craft, which have been many, many reports, very similar to each other from all over the place, many different nations. And I have readers now in 92 countries, so I'm getting feedback from lots of different places on these kinds of subjects. Like me. So collectives are hired by large empire-type nations to go explore planets for their potential, not only for resources, but for potential for colonization. We are a colonization prospect, okay? And I'm taking it all the way with you people because I mean, Reed is correcting a logos approach to this, but I'm kind of coming from the other angle of coming from this kind of position. And it's not what we want, hope, or believe, but it's the one thing that can unite a struggling humanity. We're not going to unite over diminishing resources. That could put us into ever greater conflict. We're not going to unite over religion and spirituality because we go in all directions as far as that goes. The one thing that can unite humanity is a threat to all of us equally, a threat to our freedom and to ultimately our existence here. And that's the most thing that most people do not want to hear. Is the thing they most would need to hear, because if we don't get that, then we're going in circles. We're beating around the bush while the alien agenda is carrying out its long-range plans here, winning over whole generations of people, establishing influence over individuals in positions of power in government, religion, and commerce, establishing its physical presence, mostly in oceans currently, and beginning to change the spiritual landscape of how we understand spirituality and to create a sense of their spirituality. I don't even know if they have a spirituality, but it's spirituality that's in alignment with them. They are now the new saviors of humanity, come to save us from ourselves. This is their narrative to the people they take. It's the narrative. And how do I know this? Because I've spoken at many UFO conferences where I'm the only dissenting member of the speakers. Everyone else is a pro-intervention. It's almost like an enrollment process for people to get with the intervention and believe in them, even though they're not doing anything for anybody. And so, I'm the dissenting voice. I'm the voice of, wait a minute, people, hold up. You just don't get on board and believe in a force that's not really doing anything, revealing anything. I mean, if they're really here to help us, they could have cured AIDS. They could have cured, they prevented the pandemic. They're not doing anything except maybe keeping some of their abductees alive. But, that's not good enough, people. I'm sorry. There's nothing about this that bespeaks friendship or positivity in any realm, in my view, because I look at them from a practical standpoint. Now, from a spiritual standpoint, there are higher powers in the universe, definitely. But they don't go around investing themselves in other worlds for the purpose of either trying to change the world or take it over. The spiritually advanced universe are more monastic, more hidden. They don't operate in large networks of trade and commerce. They're not the ones who are going to come to our earth presenting us with hope and belief and possibility. Meanwhile, while they're undermining the foundation of our own societies and cultures, turning people against our own governments. This is a divide and conquer strategy, people. It's been around forever. So, I mean, we just have to really be careful and look at this thing from all angles. And I don't expect you to believe what I'm telling you, but to consider it is the wisest approach. If you neglect this, then we're just giving ourselves over, or we refuse to resist. And it's making the work of the intervention ever so much easier. Think of it also another way, that they're investing in human conflict, but not to the point of really massively degrading the world. I mean, they want to make the most powerful nations weaker. And one of the ways you do that is through intractable conflicts that just go on and on and on, and that are led by people who may have been contacted by the intervention in some way. I can't really speculate about that, but they do very stupid ongoing things in protracted conflicts. So there's I did a piece of writing about how religious fanaticism is being fostered by the intervention. And while it is inherent in certain religious traditions and can be fomented by cultural and economic conditions, it serves the intervention that human conflict continues to degrade societies that have the power or the ability to stand in its way. And so we've seen that certainly since World War II, increasingly with time, that these conflicts are just being perpetuated and continued. So I think that, they want to benefit from us losing confidence in our speakers. I've spoken at a couple of conspiracy conferences, and I was amazed at the presenters there claiming to have UFO contacts assisting them. And this was years ago, but it really told to me that they are feeding into the psychology of division, to disengage us from the norms of society, to disengage us from the traditional power structures that we have, which, are tend to be corrupt, but still, they are ours. And they are fomenting the kind of psychology that makes us ever less able to make pure decisions on our own, like the fomenting of AI, for example, which doesn't give you choice, it gives you what to choose from, basically. And that would definitely play into their program. And you see these factors going on now where people are becoming seemingly less and less able to make determinations or come to conclusions. Everything is everybody's opinion. Everything is whatever you think it is. There's nothing really true out there. It's just how you perceive it. These are all narratives that disengage people from their core intelligence, which is not just our intellect, but a deeper knowledge that we all carry, that was given to us by the creator of all life, actually. And the more we become disengaged with that, the more we become products of society. We become controlled by society and cultural values or political movements and so forth. So people become less intelligent in the face of these things, less able to think on their own, think originally, have original thoughts. We're being programmed to think along certain lines, both for economic reasons, but also to serve larger agendas that are in motion in the world. And I think this control of what we think, how we think, and what we choose between represents one of the greatest threats to humanity at this time, and can be perpetrated and supported almost invisibly by the presence of the intervention in the world today. They will win us over or defeat us from having the will to resist. That's, we go back to sense, the ancient Chinese teaching about, the best strategy is to have your opponent unwilling or unable to resist. So they're disengaging us from the kind of core technology that gives us insight, strength, and determination, even against difficult situations, even up against serious odds. And so we become ever more reflective of one another, ever more thinking along certain cultural lines that are now being spawned and supported, by industry and commerce, certainly, but for other reasons as well. So I see this happening, and this is why I teach the way of knowledge. It's one of the core things that I teach. It's the core of greater community spirituality, is that we have a deeper mind that is here to prepare us to do our greater work in the world, that is not governed by politics or culture or personal preference. But once we become mature enough to to value it and find a way to access it, then we begin to live a different kind of life, a more of a mission kind of life, a life that is service-oriented and is not easily persuaded or dissuaded by anything around us, including the presence of foreign races in our world. The control of the mental environment, however, is one of their big agendas. And I think that's something we really have to pay attention to. Mm-hmm. And one of the ways we can do that, and I just want to add this thought, when we think about these things, it's really important to be objective. Objective means you're seeing, pure objectivity is seeing without preference, or seeing without desiring an outcome or a preferred outcome, which is difficult to do. I mean, if you're used to thinking in a preferred way and looking at everything preferentially, then thinking that with that kind of objectivity is difficult, but I think it's really necessary. For example, because I've taught in the realm of spirituality for so many years, I've had to deal with people's notion of love and fear. And what I want to say about love and fear is to see something clearly, you cannot, it's not about being loving or about being fearful. That's subjective and usually self-congratulatory. Real love is something else. Real fear is something else. To look clearly is to see clearly without imposing that kind of value system on your perception. And we need to look clearly regarding this intervention. Its behavior denotes its intent. Okay? Unless you want to try to make it into something self-gratifying or self-fulfilling, or it's going to give you what you think, humanity should have and we can never make for ourselves, that's thinking very ambitiously. That's not thinking clearly. So this thinking clearly is just the most important thing. And when you think clearly, it also opens you up to your core spirituality, which is this power of knowledge within you, because it thinks clearly. It's absolutely not influenced by culture, society, or any form of power in the physical universe. And it's not,
Yeah.
you can't use it as a tool. It can speak through you and guide you, but you cannot use it as a tool to get what you want. So this is the greater power that we all have that cannot be dissuaded, persuaded. It cannot be subjected. It cannot be won over by any kind of force, be it human or otherwise. Most people don't know what to do with this or have an opinion about it. They're taken up in the world. Many people are laboring under extreme poverty or political, religious oppression. People in the world just don't want to hear certain things, but that doesn't mean that life isn't moving. And we have a destiny in the universe, and that destiny is going to begin with us having to deal with intervention. So I'm not homeocentric in the sense that I don't think we have a destiny in the universe. And if people can be given opportunity to understand what is going on, many more people are going to come forth, and we've seen that happen. We're late in the game. There's no doubt about that. But this is a long game. It's not going to be over in 5 years. It's not going to be over in 10 years. So we have time, but not a lot of time. And the people who can respond to this responsibly and begin to become pro-human in the face of intervention can play lots of different roles and have a great part in strengthening the human family. But we are going to be facing environmental breakdown. We are going to be facing economic contraction. These are realities that we are facing and will face. So that can bring people closer together, or it can set them against each other. So there's a lot of unknowns in the journey ahead. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm here to do a mission. I'm on a mission. And some of you may feel that way about yourself too, even if that mission is not yet clarified for yourself. And whether things look good or bad in the moment is not going to deter you from the mission. It might give you an opportunity to speak about things or address certain problems that are immediate. But, I'm in this for the long game. And I think Reed is in this for the long game. And some of you present here are in this for the long game. I think what's important here is we have to get clear about who is in the world, why they're in the world, what it means, and how we should respond. And if we're still lost in the weeds, or we're still beating around the bush, we're still hoping and praying it's a good thing, we are not responding in a way that's going to empower us or make us able to be of service to other people in a meaningful way. So this is really about human responsibility. And if we lose that ability to respond, which can happen from many different sources, both human and otherwise, no, it's not over yet. The game is just beginning. We don't drop the ball. So here we are, and we have the journey ahead for us. And it's real, and it's big, and it's important. Remember, the Allies are a group of observers from several different planets whose own worlds had undergone an intervention very similar to our own. And so they were helped by unseen forces during their times and periods of conflict, in some cases which was very extreme. And so they're now bound to provide that service themselves to us, not just only to us, but to some other world or worlds that are undergoing the same kind of intervention experience as their first direct encounter with intelligent life in the universe on a large scale. So I don't think they're in a position to interfere. I don't think they seek to interfere, because then they have to take responsibility for maintaining interference, to becoming a co-operative or co-combatant in a situation on Earth where humanity is going to have to speak up for itself. We have the power to ward off intervention because conquest is not allowed here. And if it looks like we are in complete denial or a revolution against that, or significant revolution against that, the intervention now, its plans become much more difficult to achieve, and they would eventually have to withdraw. This is what the Allies say. Okay, so we have the power of authority. We're just not using that authority. We don't have the awareness to have that authority. We don't have it spiritually. We don't have it internally. We don't have it practically regarding the presence of the intervention in the world today. So this is, it begins with education and awareness. And we're in the period of education and awareness. And that's what, we're doing outside the government. We're wasting our time trying to beat that door down. The Allies of Humanity is a service to humanity. But really what we need to know is what we can see and know about this based on what's happened already, which paints a very clear picture if you're willing to look at it clearly. You can't turn this into something you want to be good if everything it does really isn't good. And so there has to be some recognition here, or we're just, living in confusion, and you can't have preference regarding this. You can't be what you want it to be. The universe does not respond to that. You can't create this reality. It is a reality, and you either respond to it or you don't. And if you don't respond, then that's one less person who is unwilling or unable to respond to a situation that can change the whole world, which we're undergoing right now. So the power is in our hands. No one's going to come and save us. No one is going to come and, drive away the intervention. We have to do that. That's almost like a rite of passage if we're going to become a free and self-determined people in the universe, which would create a world very different than the world we're looking at right now, by the way. And the fourth set of briefings in the Allies talks about what that could look like, not necessarily would look like, but could look like, which would be very, very different than what we see today. So it will take challenge to us to make us rise this occasion. And we have to rise this occasion if we're going to be a free people in the universe going into the future. The Allies briefings, and I hope that you will all take the opportunity to read them. They're not very long. They're very rich. But before you come to any final assessment on your own, because they're very compassionate. They're saying, here's what you must know, some of which you cannot know, given that you're still stuck on the surface of your world. That will create a clear picture for you. It's not ambiguous. It's not happening at different levels. It's not like it's not a spiritual battle. It's a physiological battle. It's a resource battle. It's life itself on the most fundamental and basic levels. And so we as human beings have a long history of intervention. We have a long history of the difficulty of establishing free societies, which only occur in certain places in the world today. So we can have appreciation for these things. And they also talk about, what restrains them. Even their home planets, they can't even mention their home planets because, as you will read in these briefings, they represent the free nations in our region of space, who by contract are not allowed to interfere with the activities of the larger trade networks in order for their freedom to be secured and not to be intervened with. So it's a very
Marshall,
complex situation, which they actually describe in the course of their briefings, which gives you an idea that they are here without official guidance from their governments. They're doing this as a service to humanity because of the guidance of higher spiritual powers, basically. And we all have been sent into the world for a certain purpose, and this purpose has to do with where we are and where we're going. Beyond our own pursuit of happiness, our own preferential way of seeing things, there's a deeper purpose for us being here, and this may call it out of us as we proceed.